This lab's going to be all about learning how to create materials and apply them to your objects. And you're going to be starting with this file. You can open up, it's called Materials Blend. And take a second to get familiar with it. You'll see there's a table with some objects created on it. And we basically have a bowl of fruit. It would maybe look a lot more realistic if we had a sense of whether objects were shiny or not, whether they had a certain color or pattern, texture. So we're going to be adding what are called materials. So take a look at the scene collection area just to get familiar with the objects and how they're labeled. Just by the way, when I opened the file, it looked like this panel just kind of looked strange. It was showing brushes and other data. It just took me a second to notice that even though I was in Outliner, the second pull down wasn't on view layer. Just if needed, you can set that to view layer. The first pull down should be Outliner. And then take a second and just notice how this is organized. There's a sub collection labeled fruit with apples, bananas, oranges in it. And then you have the other objects, the bowl, floor. And notice there is a floor. There's a panel placed there. And this is going to become a Rubik cube. So let's move ahead. We're going to go ahead and start the process of creating materials. I'm going to go ahead and select the object that I want to apply a material to. And I'm going to go down into the lower section of our property panel. And we're going to switch into a different section. Right at this second, I happen to be in the object properties. I'm sure you remember the modifier button. And if you look quite a bit lower, there's an icon that almost looks like a beach ball to me, a round icon with sort of a checker on it. And this is called Material Properties. And we're going to go here to create new materials. So right here is a new button. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And then it generated a material with just sort of a generic name, material. And I'm going to double click on that and give it a better name to start with. I think I'll just call it orange material. And then there's numerous settings down here. So we're going to sort of try out some of them gradually. I'd like to just introduce base color to start with. So I'm going to click right on this little white area and open up the color picker. And I'm just going to go ahead and actually drag and set it to an orange color that I like. Or I can click RGB. You can see it can be measured that way too. And then let me show you how to preview it, because it might look funny at this stage that I'm doing things to it, but you don't see it happening in the main preview yet. One place to preview is actually to just open up the little preview toggle. They try to give you like a rough idea of what that looks like. For example, I could watch that while I'm adjusting the color. Maybe it would help me make decisions to see that little sample preview ball. But a better way to preview in your real document area is to go into the upper right corner, and there's a series of little icons up here that affect your view. And actually, you might notice there's an icon that looks the same as the material beach ball icon. And if I click here, it's actually previewing the materials. It's funny, everything looks like it's white at the second except the orange, because nothing's been specified yet on these other objects. And just to get you a little bit familiar with the preview buttons, or shading buttons, you could call them. Usually we're in this one that is previewing objects like they're solid, but it's shaded. And then to the left of that, there is a wireframe view that you can look at or work in. And then I'm going to go back to the materials preview button so that you can see it generated and get a little better sense of how it looks in the real document. And then go ahead and create a few more materials to practice. Maybe you can just focus on base color at first and go ahead and create red for an apple in a banana material as well. So maybe I'll go ahead and do that. I'll choose the apple, and I'm still viewing material properties, and I'm going to click new, and let me name this apple material, and I'll set a base color for red. It's actually easier to make decisions this time since I'm previewing the main viewport with materials showing. And then I'm going to choose the banana. I'll do another new material. I call it banana. And I'll look for yellow in the base color. For this object, I'll just choose the orange, and then instead of a new material, I can apply one I made earlier. Maybe both of these should be the same color. So I'm still down here in material properties, but instead of new, there's a little drop down button that will show you materials you've generated earlier. So I'll just go ahead and set it to the orange material that I created. So you can definitely reuse materials on your objects. And the nice thing about having some objects use a shared material is that you can make changes and it will update both. Like here I have the orange, just one selected, and I'm going to go to base color and just adjust that a little bit, and it's applying to all the objects that have the material applied to. So it's nice, you can change settings and still have it update in the document. Next, we're going to choose the bowl, and I want to try to make a new material that feels shiny. So I actually already hit new and named mine Metal 1. And then I clicked into base color, and I want to start with a light gray. And I'll give a little tip here that if you go into the center, it's the most neutral spot, and then you can use this slider on the right to darken or lighten. So I'm just going to start with a light gray, and then we're going to try some of the other properties and talk a little bit about trying to make this feel shinier. So there's two properties I'm going to focus on to make this feel more metallic and shiny. One of them actually is just labeled metallic. If it's at 0, it thinks it's just something like fabric. You know, it has no shininess whatsoever. And sort of the more shiny it is. It's hard to say that. Like a really silvered bowl, I want to go to a higher value. You know, all the way to 1 is the highest value. You may have things that are metal, but just not quite as shiny. You can set to a lower value. So I'm going to set it to a pretty high number on metallic. And there's a second value that's really important too, labeled roughness. So I need to actually bring this down. An object that has a rougher texture doesn't reflect as much light. So if I take roughness all the way to 0 and metallic, say all the way to 1, that's going to be the shiniest possible situation, like a really shiny metal bowl. Actually, as I move this, you can really see that it is trying to create an illusion that it's shiny and kind of picking up things from nearby or reflecting an environment. Now that you see it taking effect, maybe you can even play with the values further. So the two I'm working with again are metallic, and I took mine all the way to the top, and roughness, which I took all the way to 0. You know, but you can evaluate things like what if you wanted something that's metal, but just again not as shiny. I think you can really see the roughness take effect even at low values. Then I think I'll go ahead and reset it to 0 just to make this as shiny as possible. I can also revisit the base color at this stage now that it's shiny, I could go back and play a little bit with how dark or light I want that to be. So let's keep making more materials. Let's create a material for the floor. I'm going to go ahead and choose that object, and then I'll hit New in Materials. I think I'll go ahead and title this Floor Number 1. And there may be times where you want to apply a texture instead of a base color. So on this one, I'm going to scroll down, and in the base color area, to the left of it is a little colored dot. And if you click on that, it's actually opening up a menu of options. And under textures, there's a few that we can choose that are built right into Blender. So for this one, I'd like to create a checkerboard pattern for the floor. So again, this is the dot just to the left of base color to bring up the menu. And then I'm going to choose checker texture. And then we'll experiment. First, I'm going to drag on scale. I think I'll increase the value and make the pattern look a bit smaller. Make checker tiles. And then you have two colors. It defaulted to gray and white. But you can change those. You can click on color number 1 and pick something, and then click on color number 2 and pick something else. And I think actually I'm going to use a light gray and a red. You can choose any colors that you like. Bring down the value there. You also have the ability to use images of your own in addition to the textures that are provided by Blender. I'm going to select the table and try to use an image of my own on that. In the sample files included several texture images in a folder called texture. There's a photo of wood grain that I'd like to try for this one. So we start by creating a new material. I'm going to just title it wood table material. And then I'm going to go down towards base color and click the little dot to bring up a menu. And this time I'm going to try just choosing image texture in order to use my own image. And right after picking image texture, there's some little choices directly below base color. So I can create a new image, or I can open images that I have locally, or you can actually choose things that you may have used in the past if there's one already loaded up. I'm going to hit open and browse into textures and choose the wood image. And then now I see that actually apply to the table. So that brings up some good possibilities for you of using photographs, images, scans, artwork coming from places like Photoshop, and then having that assigned to your surfaces. There's a Rubik's Cube sitting here, and this one's going to be interesting because we're going to apply more than one material to the object. And I want to change the view for a second. If you go to wireframe view, you can see better that this actually is cut into parts. There's multiple faces on the side. And let me go back to viewing with our materials. So good process for something like this is to start in object mode and apply a material. And then we can switch into edit mode to assign a second material to individual parts. So this one will be a little bit tricky, but useful, I think, for you. So you can start again in object mode, select this, and let's go ahead and make a new material. And I think I'm just going to call it R color 1 for Rubik Cube 1. And you can set the initial color to anything that you like. I'm going to go ahead and just use a base color. Maybe I'll use a light blue on mine, I think. And that can be any color that you want. So at first that's assigned to the overall object. Then we're going to switch into edit mode. And I need to make sure that I'm choosing face select so that I can choose these individual faces. I'm also going to just zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see this. I'm going to select all of the faces on one side of the cube. So let me just use the shift key and I'm going to select 9 squares. And then what we're going to do is create a new material. Like, it kind of recognizes that the base color material is already assigned to the overall object. But if you look carefully, there's a little plus button that'll let you create an additional material slot on the same object. So it's tricky. We're in edit mode. You have the faces selected. Then let's hit plus. And then I'll come down here and I can either do a new material or I can pick one that I've used earlier. I think, by the way, I'll just zip in and use the banana material just to quickly apply yellow. And then I need to click assign, assuming I like that, I want that to take effect. I'm going to go ahead and change my view. By the way, I'm either dragging the gizmo or I'm dragging the mouse wheel there. I'll zoom in a little bit too. Let's repeat the process to create another color on this side. So I'm shift clicking in edit mode to select all 9 faces on one side. And then I'm going to hit plus to create another material slot in here. And then I think I'll still use a color I made earlier for ease. I'll go ahead and pick one of the reds. And then I click assign. And that's making it stick to the selected faces. I think I'll just do one more. So shift clicking to select the additional faces. And then I'm hitting the plus symbol to add another material slot. This time I just think I'll hit new and then choose a color I haven't used yet, like a dark blue. And I can name this one. I think I'll just call it R color blue. And then I have to hit assign. It's easy to actually, I think, miss the assign button. It's almost like there's too many steps. It's select the faces, make sure you're hitting plus for new material, and then assign as a rhythm. And all of those steps are happening in edit mode so that I am able to select these pieces. This is interesting because it gives you the ability to add multiple materials to a single object. Then I'm done at this stage, so I'm going to go ahead and just switch back to object mode. And I'm finished with the lab, so I could go ahead and save and turn this in. And then start to think about your project and this whole idea that you can add materials, either using textures built into Blender or images that you provide, or just specifying things like color and shininess, metals. So I hope you enjoyed this lab and found it useful.